Hi, it's me. I know it's been about a year or more since my last vlog, and for that I am deeply apologetic. I have no excuse other than the fact that I'm lazy and haven't gotten around to doing a vlog. Um, there have been a couple of requests uh, for me to do kind of a reading thing on my vlog, and so yay, tonight we get to do that. Finally, I guess. Aren't you lucky? Um, the story I'm going to read tonight is an unpublished short, and I'm going to try and keep it very short. It's designed to be only maybe 5 to 7 minutes long. If it goes too long, I will have to break this vlog into 2 parts to upload it to YouTube. Be warned. And this story was written for a charity event we had back in January. For those who don't know, we had a devastating fire downtown here on the Oregon coast, in Astoria, and several businesses were lost in this event. And we had a fundraiser here in town for one of the local businesses called Hipfish. It's a arts and leisure kind of newsletter type thing, and it's been very wonderful and helpful to me and to other local artists, authors, musicians. So much goes into Hipfish, and everything was lost in the fire. So we did a charity event for this, and I wrote a special short story just for that, and that's the one I'm going to read to you tonight. It's called By a Lantern Bright, and there has been a request, a special request, Skyla, this is for you, of little bee girl in the background. And for those who don't know, Bee is my young kitten that we adopted back in December, just before the fire actually. And she's got kyphosis. It's a back condition, and in addition to that, she's got some paralysis issues. So she's a very special little girl, and there's been a request for her to be in the background as I read the story. And well, she can't exactly be in the background. She is right here, and I will. This is her. She's a very sleepy little girl. And so here you are. This is the bee girl. You can tell she's so happy. Oh. And so Bee is here with us, and we're going to read a story. Yes, we are. We're going to read a story. Okay. So, with the bee girl in the background, I assure you she's here. She's right here. We're going to read this story. Again, this is called By a Lantern Bright, and it was written for charity. Molly, now what have you found? The woman asked the small terrier mix, straining at the end of the leash. Something else dead and wonderfully smelly? The dog kept on digging and barking and was up to his shoulders in wet sand before Jessica could holler backward. Come on, whatever it is, leave it. Jessica's brow furrowed as she looked into the hole Molly had excavated. A flicker of sunlight from a rare break in the gray cloud cover glinted off a round piece of glass sticking out of the top. Jessica's scowl deepened as she reached for the glass. People and their beach litter. Didn't they know that kids ran barefoot on this beach? Someone could cut themselves. Bottles belonged in the recycling, not on the beach. Her fingers closed on the glass and she gave it a tug. It didn't budge. Surprised, Jessica knelt and scraped a bit more of the sand away from the edge of the glass. Molly, seeing this as an invitation, flung herself back into the hole she'd started and resumed digging. After a long few moments of work, the object came free at Jessica's tug. She held it up to look closer at it. It looked like an old mason jar, but it had several bands etched around it, cut into the thick glass. She tapped it several times and shook the hard-packed sand out of the middle of it. Jessica stood and took it to the surf. She rinsed away what sand had remained on the surface of it as well as her hands, and looked once more at the glass. On the bottom, or was it the top, of it were raised letters worn smooth and unreadable by the tide. Some kind of company name, maybe? Her grandma had collected old bottles, but Jessica knew very little about them. She did know that sometimes old glass fishing floats sometimes washed up here on the Oregon beaches, but this didn't look like a fishing float. It looked more like those funky old light fixtures in hotels. Or maybe it was just an old jar. It could be anything, given the stuff floating in the ocean these days. Beachcombing wasn't really Jessica's thing, but every now and then she found something interesting when she was out walking Molly. I wonder what it is, and how long it's been here, Jessica thought. It's too neat to put in the recycling. For now, it's going home with me. Later on, I'll take it to the Maritime Museum and ask what it is. If nothing else, it will make a great candle holder. Jessica and Molly finished their walk. Molly was oddly docile and stayed right by Jessica's side, glancing up every other step at the jar in Jessica's hand, and went home. The nice man at the Maritime Museum told her what she'd found was an old lens for a lantern. While commonly used on ships, it wasn't a particular nautical item. Old, certainly, probably over 100 years or so, but nothing spectacularly odd or valuable. It could have been washed overboard years ago and washed up on the beach, buried by decades' worth of tides. Jessica took it home and set it on the windowsill of her kitchen with a few of her other interesting beach finds. The wind buffeted Jessica's small house, rattling the windows. She shivered, not entirely from the draft, and drew her blanket tighter around her shoulders. Molly looked up at Jessica from her bed and whined at her, worried. "It's all right, girl," Jessica soothed the dog. "Just the wind. It's nasty out there, isn't it? We'll have to miss our walk. I'm not taking you out in this. We'll play ball in the hall instead. How's that? You'd like that, wouldn't you?" Molly put her head down. Molly put her head back down on her bed between her paws and looked up at Jessica with an obvious sulk. Clearly, ball in the hall most certainly did not make up for a missed walk, thought Jessica. She shrugged and ignored the guilt glare Molly was giving her as she went into the kitchen to make herself something warm to drink. Just as she reached to turn on the water and fill her tea kettle, the lights flickered. A gust of wind shook the house to the floorboards, and the lights went out completely. Jessica shivered again and held very still. She counted to 5, waiting, hoping the lights would return to life. When they didn't, she turned off the water and set her kettle aside. No electricity, no stove, no microwave. A hot drink was out of the question unless she wanted to use hot tap water for a cup of tea. Ew. Though it wasn't quite dusk, the storm outside made the evening even darker, and the wind made the house spookier. Light. Candles. Jessica's brain started to engage again, and she searched the junk drawer for her candle lighter. The lighter she found, but where were all her candles? She looked around and could only find the small tea light stuck in the back of the drawer. Better than nothing. No candles, no candle holders. What was going on? Where was everything? Then she remembered the Halloween party she had been to a few weeks prior. She'd taken all her candles to her best friend Tina's house. She kept meaning to go back over and get them, but that doesn't help me now, thought Jessica. Light the candle and find a flashlight or something. Maybe that lantern you have for the camping trip that you never took is still in the lantern. Jessica's eyes returned to the windowsill, to the old lantern lens she and Molly had found on the beach. Jessica had thought then about using it as a candle holder, and here was a candle in her hand. She smiled and reached for the banded glass. She put the tea light inside and lit it. The candle sputtered to life, and a soft warm glow emanated from the glass in her hand. Jessica smiled at the feeling of instant warmth and comfort that enveloped her. She glanced down at the floor, impressed by the size of the dim ring of light that surrounded her. It was only a tea candle in an old glass jar, but it sure put out an amazing amount of light. The man at the Maritime Museum had told her the light from old ship's lanterns had been able to be seen from up to 3 nautical miles away. Jessica wondered what the difference between a nautical mile and a regular one was, and made a mental note to Google that once the power back on. A gust of wind rattled the windows again, reminding Jessica of its presence. She set the candle down on the table and turned to go and get Molly's ball when the glass surrounding the tea light seemed to... Don't be stupid, Jessica chided herself. And don't start freaking yourself out. Seeing random things where there aren't any. It's just a shadow, that's all. A shadow on clear glass with a light behind it, scoffed the annoying voice of reason in her head. Oh, shut up, she silenced it, and started to turn away again when the glass did it again. It darkened, just like a glass did in the sink when Jessica did the dishes, like someone had submerged it in water. Then, just as suddenly as it had dimmed, the glass returned to normal. Just the candle getting used to the wick, Jessica told herself. Old candle, dry wick, something. Then why was it the glass that had dimmed and not the candle inside it? That insufferable voice inside her head asked. Would you stop that? Jessica silenced the voice again. She shrugged off the uncomfortable feeling and turned to go and get Molly's ball. She yelped as she all but tripped over Molly. The dog was sitting at her feet, staring at the candle on the table. Molly? What is it, girl? Molly didn't twitch an ear. The dog sat very still, her attention focused intently on the light above her. Jessica glanced back at the glass. A small ring of water pooled at the base of it, darkening the table around it. A drop of moisture slid down its rigid bands. Fear tingled through Jessica. She reached for the candle, but before she touched the glass it dimmed to almost black. Yet the candle inside it remained bright.